Okay, so that's the recording and the transcription. The transcription is the text, voice to text part of Teams, so it will actually show up on your screen, and you'll be able to see it both here if you turn it on from the three dots menu, and also with the recording later on. It's not always perfect, as you'll have noticed when I try to pronounce your names. Teams doesn't like my pronunciations either, so quite often you'll see mistakes on the transcript. But I'm sure you'll get the gist between listening to me and seeing the words. So let's start off by talking about governance, risk, and compliance. And the first thing I'm going to check is that you're actually seeing the presentation.
Yes.
Yes, I've seen it.
Right, that's
Yes.
good. So, what is governance, risk, and compliance? Well, it's a way of trying to put a framework in place for the best way to manage an organisation. Best, of course, is a very subjective word. It's what's best for one organisation may not be best for another, depending on the kind of organisation it is, its size, the area that it works in. But it tries to give some guidelines on how you can put into place a governance structure. Who decides what the organisation is going to do? Who decides how it's going to progress? Who decides what its overall aims are? Well, someone or some set of people has to do that, and that's the governance part. Whenever you do anything in any sort of organisation, there's a risk. If I decide that today I'm going to set up a cookie company, I am immediately incurring a risk because I would have to buy ingredients to make cookies. So I'm spending money, that's a risk. So I might be buying ingredients that I can't sell. I'll have to invest in some equipment, like an oven to bake my cookies. And again, that's also a risk. But there's other risks. What if I don't install the oven properly? What if the oven goes on fire? So these are fairly clear risks, but for bigger organisations, for different organisations, there'll be other things going on. Sorry, I've just been distracted. Your friend sent me an email. Quadra, did you manage to get in contact with him? Because he sent me an email saying that he can't get connected. Right, I'm just sending him an email to help him. Get it. And this, of course, is part of the reason why it's an easy day for the first day. So, we have governance, we have risk, and the third one in GRC is compliance. And compliance is about ensuring that you comply with all the legislative frameworks. So my cookie company, well, I'm kind of guessing that the law of the land would frown on me poisoning people. There's probably laws that I have to observe if I want to sell food to people. So that's part of the compliance. There's another C that you'll see quite often in the materials, and that's control. GRC is governance, risk, and compliance. But sometimes organizations don't just want to be compliant. So, for example, if you buy something online in the UK, there are legislative frameworks in place that say how you have to do that. How soon, how long you're given, for example, to return goods that you buy online that you didn't want. So you have 30 days to return them. That's compliance, and you have to comply with the law. But organizations might want to get a competitive edge. So they might want to say, well, actually, the law says 30 days, but we'll say 60 days. So our control is, if anybody wants to return something, they have 60 days to do it, and we'll check that that's what's happened. There might be a law that you have to respond to somebody within 5 working days. The organisation might want to say, well, actually, we want to do it within 2 working days because we want to make sure that the people we work with get the best possible service. So that's the difference between a compliance, which you have to do because it's legislative, it's the law of the land, and control, something that the organisation wants to do because that's the best thing for it. Nobody's jumping in with any questions. So this is the last time I'll say this. If you do have questions, just stop. Anybody got any questions just now before we move on? Yep. Okay. He says okay, and then PowerPoint doesn't want to do it. Come on, PowerPoint, you can do the next slide. I've got faith in you. Yay. Okay, so you signed up for a Masters in Cybersecurity. So one of the things you're probably asking is, if I'm doing cybersecurity, why do I care about governance, risk, and compliance? Well, and I would tell you that all knowledge is really helpful. So getting to learn about anything is great. More specifically though, the sort of stuff that you're doing doesn't exist on its own. So cybersecurity doesn't exist on its own, IT doesn't exist on its own. It fits in as part of the organisation. If we don't have an organisation, we don't need the IT. So we have to understand the organisation, we have to understand how it works, and we have to understand how we fit into that. Cybersecurity might be part of that. The compliance for, say, an organisation that sells online, you'll have to understand the legislation that's around it. And you have to ensure that you put that in as part of your cybersecurity framework. If someone comes to your site and puts in their name and address and credit card details, well, I'm kind of hoping that your cybersecurity framework has some way of keeping them safe. And if it doesn't, it really should. The other thing, of course, is that IT in general are quite often tasked with putting in place the record keeping for this kind of stuff. So say, for example, I have to, in my cookie company, check that I have to check my ovens every 30 days to make sure that they're clean and functioning properly. Well, there's got to be a record of that somewhere. Quite often that record now is online, so you'll get involved in that kind of stuff. So there are multiple places where you'll be directly involved in governance, risk, and compliance for your job. Pippin, good to see you. We've got someone else joined us. Nice to see you here. Now, I'm going to take a risk. I do this every year and it's been fine so far. What I'm going to do is do a quick Google search for job in Scotland that mentions both cybersecurity. Not that I can spell cybersecurity, apparently. Either GRC or governance. So there we go. First thing that pops up, an information security manager. That sounds very much like cybersecurity to me. And what it puts into the job title is GRC. So the Information Security Manager, the cybersecurity specialist, has to understand governance, risk, and compliance. It's there in the first line. This job was posted 11 days ago and is worth $40,000 a year. That's why we're doing this. It's a key component of the sorts of jobs that we're expecting you to get. That's why it's in here. We didn't sit by one day and go, what can we give the students? Oh, I know, let's just chuck in GRC. This has come straight from employers. It's what they've asked us to do. It's what they see as being core to a security style job. So that's why you're doing this. That makes sense so far? Thank you for the nods. I'll just pause to say this is an introductory day, so welcome to the people who have just managed to make it through to us. Glad you're here. So we're only a couple of slides in, and one of the things that I do...
I was following, yeah, I was following. I just turned on my camera.
Ah, that's okay.
Hi, guys.
We're only a couple of slides in, and I am recording this, so you can go back and see the first 5 minutes or so anyway. So that's why we're doing it. It's something that's going to be key to your security style jobs. And organizations are really keen on this stuff for very good reasons. People who look after organizations, if you're a director of a company, for example, have a whole set of responsibilities. So financial responsibilities, if you lose money for the organization and it's your fault, you have an issue. You have a fiduciary, which is hard to say this early in the morning, responsibility. That basically says that you have to put the organization before yourself. So if, for example, you're in a position to hire a window cleaner to clean the office windows, you have to do that properly. You can't just go, oh, fantastic, my brother-in-law is a window cleaner, come on, here's the job. You have to offer the job to everyone to get the best service and the best price for the organisation. So lots of organisations have procurement rules for that very reason. Because if you don't do that kind of stuff, then there can actually be criminal penalties. You can actually be fined or go to prison if you don't conform to these things, particularly on things like health and safety. If you don't put in proper health and safety frameworks, then there is something called corporate responsibility. In other words, the corporation can be sued as if it was a person, or can be prosecuted as if it's a person. So all of these things mean that the people in charge of organisations are very keen on GRC. And if they're keen on GRC, they're very keen that you, as a security person, is keen on GRC. Putting a GRC framework shows that you take it seriously and that you have done your best. Things go wrong. So health and safety, for example, people have accidents. You can be walking down the road and fall over. Of course you can. You can be walking down the road and fall into a hole. Of course you can. But who's responsible for that? Well, if you're on your phone, not looking where you're going, you have a fair responsibility for that yourself. On the other hand, if the road maintainer was out and dug up the pavement and didn't put some fencing around it, leaving a big hole in the middle of the pavement, that's their fault. So putting these frameworks in place and recording that you've done it. If you go out to dig a hole in the pavement, here's a list of things that you must do. You must tell people that it's happening. You must put up signs. You must put fences around it and all that kind of stuff. If you put those frameworks in place and you can show that you've done your best, that's often enough. Because of course, the people that dug up the pavement could have done all that, and then 2 hours later, somebody could have come along and just thrown the fence away, leaving the hole exposed. That's not the organisation's fault, that's the vandal's fault. And you can show, and you have a record in your IT system that says we did everything right, we told everybody, we put up the signs, we put up the fences. It's a shame that people had an accident, but honestly, it wasn't our fault. So we have to put these kind of frameworks in place to ensure that we are protected. I should have said earlier, by the way, I'm not at the moment watching tennis. I know you're seeing me go like this. So I'm not watching tennis. It's just that I've got multiple screens here. You guys are up there. What I'm showing you is up there, and I'm controlling it all down here on another screen. So that's why I'm looking around everywhere.
No worries. It's fine, Tony.
Thank you. So that's if you're a director, that's if you're in charge of a company. What if you're not a director? Well, there's an example if you're not a director. Here's an example if, for example, you're an IT security manager, or in this particular case, an IT administrator. It's an American example, but people in organizations have a responsibility to follow the law as well. So this IT administrator who accessed computers without authorization and deleted company files got fined and got sent to prison. And I mention this for 2 reasons. One is, of course, that's a terrible thing to do. But the second one is, as security people, and you guys are security people, can you tell me how this person was allowed to do this? Well, let me frame it slightly differently. What did the organization do wrong?
Can you say that again?
If this IT administrator managed to access computers without authorization and delete files, what did the organization, what did you as the IT security manager do wrong?
It didn't protect it didn't protect the systems properly. Yeah, he shouldn't get authorization to files he's not supposed to get authorization on.
Yep, and that can happen in all sorts of ways. Do a quick Google for people who have been fired and then go and delete servers.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, happens all the time because people don't get the order right. They fire people and then they remove them from the system when they should remove them from the system and then fire them.
That's horrible.
But it can happen for other kinds of ways. So say, for example, you have an employee who has access to the accounts information quite properly because they're an administrator in accounts. And they get a promotion within the organization and they move from finance to HR. So they then get access to HR files quite properly because they're now in HR. Who is responsible for removing them from the access to the finance files? Can that HR person now access HR and finance files? Could they then, for example, look up any one of us and see what we get paid? Because they can see our personnel files and the finances to see what came out there. So all of these things need to be built into systems, and that's what you guys need to think about. All of this stuff. Not just how it relates to some of the traditional things that you might have been covering. how to protect your IP traffic, how to ensure that you have redundancy in your network. But how does the organization work? What are the processes in there that you have to work with, and how can you make sure that they are as safe as possible? And that's why I'm saying this is what organizations have asked us to do, because they see that as a huge issue. Because it is a huge issue, particularly if something goes wrong. What could happen? Well, let's put yourself in the position that you are the director of a company. How do you know what to do? So you've got a big company, thousands of employees, dozens of locations. How do you make a decision? You're getting information from somewhere. But what is that information? Is it accurate? Is it up to date? Are the people that are giving it to you reliable? And what would happen if that wasn't the case? And the reason I ask the question is I've got an example of that. I don't know if any of you have heard of a company called Patisserie Valerie.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, yes.
There used to be a lot more of them, it has to be said. They're a cake, coffee, sandwich company. You would see them on the high street, you would see them in train stations, airports, that kind of stuff. They had an issue. The person at the top, the managing director, wrote quite a self-serving document saying that he was tricked because his financial director gave him the wrong figures. In essence, there was 94 million that the managing director thought that they had that they didn't have because the accounts were wrong. And you might feel some sympathy for him, saying, no, that's terrible. And managing that finance director giving him the wrong information. And that is bad. The financial director has clearly done something wrong. But let's think about this a bit more holistically. The directors of the company who are responsible for the governance of the company received some documents that gave them an idea of the financial health of the business. That was misstated, and I've put misstated in quotes because clearly it wasn't mistaken. It was misstated, it was fraud on behalf of the finance director. But on the other hand, in terms of the corporate governance, there was one person and one person only responsible for creating those financial statements, the financial director. No one else was allowed to look at them. No one else was allowed to check his sums. As simple as that. No one else was allowed to look at them or do anything with them. There was only one person involved in deciding what the financial health of that company was. That is a risk. If you have only one person whose job it is to look after the finances, that's a risk. I used to be treasurer of my son's judo club. Even it was a local judo club, but there was still somebody else who checked my figures. There was an auditor, there was somebody else in the club that checked my figures to make sure that I wasn't stealing their 50p subscriptions. So for a company of that size, to put all the financial information in the hands of one person, that was a massive risk, and that was wrong. Not just wrong in terms of how you would run a company, it's wrong in terms of how the legislation works. Because public companies have a responsibility under the law to ensure financial compliance, and they failed. So Patisserie Valerie was a coming together of all these problems. The governance failed because they didn't identify a risk. Because they didn't identify it, they couldn't deal with it, which meant that the company failed in its legislative compliance. They failed in everything: governance, risk, and compliance. And part of the reason I said the statement from the managing director was a bit self-serving is because he should have known that. That's part of his job as a managing director, to make sure that these things don't happen. So that's why it's important. That's why you should be doing it, and that's why we will be doing it. So we'll be looking at governance, risk, and compliance, where they fit into the organisation, how they all work together in terms of who comes up with all of these things, and how that framework can be put together in an organisation. Any questions?
Hi, I just want to say, you know, it's like I think that the similar cases happened in 1999 with the post office, and the postmasters has been accused of stealing money off the accounts. However, the program system that they used, it's Horizon. It's like the money that gets in, it doesn't show it. It shows a different amount. So it's like last year, I think they've been all cleared out because of the program mistake. But it's like whole, you know, it's like I think this is similar to Pasteuri Valeria, but it's just like a different view of the system that is not working and is not being checked properly.
I think you're exactly right. And if my computer ever catches up, hopefully we can find I just can't type this morning. Look at how I've spelt financial. So there in Computer Weekly, you can see what the issue was. There was a system called Horizon, as you rightly say. It didn't work. So whenever the people in the post offices added up their till receipts, the till receipts would say, we've taken in £100. Horizon would say, no, you've taken in £200. And the post office would say, oh, well, the computer system must be right. Where's our £200? This happened for years and years. Worse, the post office knew, and the company that created the Horizon computer system knew, that there were problems with the system. That didn't stop the post office prosecuting the people called sub-postmasters who ran the post offices. Several of them went bankrupt, several of them went to prison, and some of them even committed suicide because their systems were wrong. So that's a great example. Thank you for that one. Any other questions or comments?
You just made me scared right now with all this compliance and you being blamed for this role as a professional in a company. If anything should come up, I'm scared right now.
Good. A wee bit of fear will encourage you to do a better job. It is a big thing, so I'm not going to underplay it. But as I say, that's why we're doing this.
It is what it is.
Sorry?
I said it is what it is.
Yeah. Okay, so
Hi.
that's the end of. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. My internet was very bad. It was terrible this morning. I just had to reboot. That's why I didn't join earlier.
That's okay.
Been messing up since
This is
yesterday. Don't know what's wrong with BT.
Terrible or horrible.
Don't worry about it. There will come a day when it will be my internet that's acting up, and I'll have to be apologising to you because I'm struggling to get into the lecture. So don't worry about it. All the lectures are being recorded, so you can look back on it later anyway.
All right. One more thing. I really want to go into governance and risk and compliance. So that's why I want to. That's where I want to major. So I'm really sad that I missed, the major part of the lecture. I'm really sad.
Yeah, it's an introduction to GRC, and if it's something you want to go into, clearly you've looked into it a little to know what it is, and that's really what the
What
first.
you just said now is making. I think I'm going to change my mind if I'm going to get in trouble.
Well, you won't get in trouble if you put your systems in place and follow them, and that's the other point that I was making. It was the idea that as long as you actually do what you're supposed to do, things go wrong. Of course they do. As long as you can say, no, I did this and I did this and I did this. Look, here's a list of things. Here's a trail. This is what I did. Yes, it went wrong, but things do go wrong. That's understandable. Nobody complains about that. What they complain about is if you didn't even think about it in the first place.
Okay.
If my cookie company hired somebody and I told them to take the cookies out of the oven and I didn't give them an oven glove, that's my fault. But if I gave them an oven glove and they forgot to put it on, that's their fault. So there's a difference here. So you don't need to be worried about this in that sense. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, if it goes wrong, things do go wrong, but that's not as much of a problem as if you don't do them in the first place.
Okay, now I get it right now. It's quite different from you not doing the right thing and things go wrong and you'll be in deep shit.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the introduction. That's the what we're doing and why. Just a wee bit on the administration. So clearly you're in Teams. We now have 10 out of the 11 who have signed up that are here, which is good. Hopefully you will all have seen Teams. So this is how Teams looks. We have our own team here. It's got the code and the name. So if we go in here, there's a whole bunch of things in here. We have things called channels down the left, a general channel and a lectures channel. And I put the link to the lecture in there. And at the top, we have what are called tabs. So if you haven't explored this yet, there's general information. And this is something that I give to all my students, no matter what module they're taking. There are links, useful links for GRC, useful links for the university. Now, we're in transit at the moment, so we've got both Moodle, My UWS, and Aula. So all the materials are on Moodle there. You should all have been enrolled. Yes, you are. I can see you all there. So
sorry.
all the materials are there.
Excuse me, sorry to cut you. I can't see this on my module. Is there something you could do? I've tried to look for it since yesterday.
Which this are we talking about? Are we talking about Teams? Are we talking about Moodle?
The module. The module.
This Moodle?
Yeah.
Well, have you tried going on to Teams and clicking that link on that tab? Does that take you there, first of all?
Oh, okay. All right. Let me try that. Thank you.
Try that. It'll ask you to log in. Just use your usual login details, and then that should take you there. But you need to log in first. Once you do get logged in, all the information is down the side. Now, you'll not see all of this. So, for example, there's some admin stuff in there that you'll see I've got hidden from students. So you'll not see that, but I will. So that's why there's slight differences. So don't worry about that. But in essence, we are going to work our way through all the stuff that you see here. So this is the introduction. In the introduction section, there's the presentation that I've just gone through. And there's some extra supporting material that you might find useful. And you'll see this as I go through. So there's a core material, the stuff that you absolutely positively have to know. There's a supporting material, things that you should know if you want a decent mark. And then there's the additional material, things that are useful, things that will help you get a better understanding of the subject both now and in your career. There are a few course texts. I'm not asking you to buy any of them. These all exist in the university library. I've got some copies put in there, and you can go and see them in there. They're helpful in that reading a different approach to something is always a good idea. Everyone explains things differently. Everyone has a different approach. So looking at them in a different way can be really helpful. But this book, for example, is about £50. Oh no, it's gone down. It's now only £30. But I'm not recommending you buy it. It's in the library. I'm recommending you look through it, have a read at it. But none of these books, I think, are essential in terms of buying them. Apart from anything else, things are changing very quickly. So they are worth looking at. They're worth reading through. But this one, for example, GDPR, I've just looked. And on Amazon just now, it's £67. Don't spend £67. But as I say, they're in the library. Have a look at them in the library. There's also some other texts that you might find useful. These are all free. So if there's anything in there you think will be helpful, dig in, enjoy. What's the worst that could happen? They're free. Okay, so everything's set up into sections. So that was the introduction section. That's what we're doing. We're going to have a break shortly, but when we come back, we'll talk about the assessments. So the same thing again. There'll be a presentation on the assessment, and there'll be information on how the assessment's going to work, and helpful links. Now, as I said, we are transitioning from Moodle to Aula. So one of the things I'm currently doing is moving the materials. So there's a link up here called Module Materials. It's got all the same things that we've just been talking about. They're just in a different place. So there's the introduction. There's the core presentation again. There's links to the course texts. The supporting material, the additional material. So it's all the same stuff, just in a different place. As I say, it's just because I'm trying to move to this new VLE. Okay, so all these links up here are there to try and help and give you access to materials. The fact that I've gone to the time, the trouble and the effort of putting them there should suggest to you that I see them as helpful for your course. I haven't just put them there because, you know, I had a spare hour one day and thought I'd add in some stuff. They're there because they're important. We will be going through it in roughly this order, no, in exactly this order. So today we'll do the introduction and we'll talk about how we're going to assess it. Next week, we'll start on governance. Once we've finished governance, we'll do risk, then the IT specific frameworks, then compliance, then control. Okay, so we'll work through it in the order that it's in there. Now, those are the things that we will cover in class, but you'll see other links down the side. Some of them have a hash next to them. Some of them have an asterisk next to them. I'll deal with the asterisk first. Those are things that you might find helpful, but you will not be disadvantaged in the slightest if you never go anywhere near them. They are there because they're actually materials from another module that I do at level 9. So some people who come into this class will have seen that and will start talking about those things and using them. But those of you who are new to the MSc won't have seen them. So I've put them there for convenience. It just makes it easy for you to find them and use. But if you never click into those sections, you will not be disadvantaged at all. Okay, so if there's an asterisk next to them, if you find it useful, help yourself, but they are not at all necessary. The ones with the hashes, on the other hand, are necessary. So we're talking about compliance, we're talking about legislation. So that is sections on some of the applicable legislation, things like health and safety at work or GDPR or the copyright legislation. Now, as you know, this is a 10 credit module. We don't have time to cover all the legislation. It's assumed that when you start this module, you have already done something about legislation. So this, for example, if you've come to UWS, again, you would have done this in a different module at level 9. I've put it there again for convenience, but in this case, you do need to know it. But we won't be covering it, so there will not be lecture time in class. So you do need to know about the Health and Safety at Work Act, for example, because clearly it's a key part of compliance for an organisation. But we're not going to cover it. I've put it there for you to work through in your own time. Many of you will already have seen this. Many of you will already have done these things. So we're not going to cover it again, but I've put it there for convenience and because you do need to know it. Okay, so I'll be expecting to see information about this kind of stuff in your assessment. As we go through, you will get assignments. So for example, the first assignment that you got was to read the module information. Which is that stuff there. And it's just me saying, go away and read this. The actual thing that you have to do is click a box to say, yeah, I've read this. Okay. The next one I'll talk about when we're talking about your assessment. I'll leave that just now, so we'll come back to that. When those things appear, you'll see them. So there, for example, in the feed for general, there was an assignment which said read module information. You can click on that and it will show you the assignment. There's no point in me clicking on it because you'll see something different to me. I'll see a list of you guys and who's done it. You'll actually see the assignment. It's also been popped into your calendar. So if I take my calendar away from work week into week, that's not for this module, it's for another one, but you will see somewhere in your calendar, read the module information for you guys. I think it's Monday for you guys, can't remember. Yeah, So there's your read the module information. So as these things come up, they'll populate in your calendar. You'll get reminders in your calendar, you'll get reminders in your feed. So there should be plenty of places where you'll see these things. There will at some point be a link to Aula up there. As I say, I'm currently moving stuff from Moodle to Aula. But the main place you'll see things at the moment is Teams. It's where the lectures are. We're doing everything online this year. Partly because there's two ways we could have run this. Because it's a 10 credit module, we could have done it for 4 hours for 6 weeks. Or we could do it for 2 hours for the term. The first time I ran this module, we did it 4 hours for 6 weeks. And the stuff that we're doing is fairly new to most people. Because you guys are IT people. I'm an IT person. So if I talk to you about programming or IP or routers, you're kind of going, okay, yeah, we've done that before. If I talk to you about something like governance, risk and compliance, on the other hand, not so much. So what I've done, I've actually used the fact that we're online to try and spread it out a wee bit. So we'll talk about things and it gives you a chance to reflect on them. So we're doing this for 2 hours a week for the first term. That's why. It's to try and give you a chance to reflect on it and try and understand the materials before we move on to the next stuff. Okay, I think that's all I want to say just now. So the next thing is about the assessment, but we are working online. Attending any lecture is tiring. Attending online lectures is even more tiring. So, does anyone have any questions just now? Any questions, any comments, anything at all?
What are our assessments going to be like?
I've got a presentation for that, and that's going to be the next thing. But before we get to that, as I said, it's tiring being online. So what I'm going to do is take a break. So let's take a 10-minute break. You can go and grab a cup of tea or whatever. I'll see you back in 9 minutes and 50 seconds, and then we'll talk about the assessment. Okay?
No worries.
See you shortly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, and we're back. Wow. All I did during that was go and make a cup of tea. I can't believe it took me 10 minutes to make a cup of tea. Ridiculous. Never mind. Cheers. Okay, anybody thought of anything they want to ask before we move on? If not, let's talk about the assessment. Okay, you all seen that okay?
Yes.
Yep, thank you. Okay, so the title says assessments. Actually, that's a lie. It's one assessment. It's a report. It's based on a case study. So again, all the stuff is available. Everything for this whole module is available right from day one. Okay, I haven't hidden anything. The only difference is everything is on Moodle, but I'm currently transferring everything to this one, so it's only got as far as governance. But you can find everything on Moodle just now. So if we go to the assessment section, you'll see that it's a case study. So what I'm going to get you to do is pretend that you are a compliance manager. So you've just got your first job, and it's in a company that don't have a governance risk and compliance strategy at all. So you have to write a report. And you can see there some of the things, and it says there, must include but is not restricted to. So that will get you a pass, but it won't get you a good pass. Not surprisingly, what the governance framework should be, what the risks are, what the legislative issues may be. Now, you are IT people, but part of GRC, and you saw that with the job that I showed you, is it isn't just about IT, it's about the whole organisation. So don't just limit yourselves to IT issues. Now, one of the things that we have is something called learning outcomes. So if you look at the module descriptor, there are learning outcomes shown there. Demonstrate an understanding of the theories, concepts and principles, apply them and analyse an organisation's approach. That's why we're using a case study. It means that you've got an organisation that I have created in my head and you can analyse that organisation. Now, this is an appropriate point to pause. Is anyone here doing this course as part of their employment? Because if you have employment and you have an organisation that you're working with, you can also do this with your organisation rather than with the case study. No? Okay. All right, so those are the three learning outcomes. Demonstrate an understanding, apply the knowledge and analyse it. So that's why we're doing this case study. We've got an organisation that we're thinking about. So analyse is the learning outcomes 2 and 3. learning outcome 1 is the demonstrate. So what you're going to create is a report in 2 parts. The first one is, here's what you should do. Having looked at your organisation, this is my recommendation, or here are my recommendations, including all the stuff that you can see up there. But part of the reason they're getting you to do this is because they don't know about GRC, they don't know about the background, they don't know about anything. So as well as the report, you have to create a set of appendices. The idea with the appendices is that if the board have a question, so you might say, for example, you should implement a comprehensive set of employee statuses which will allow them to get access to different parts of the computer system, for example. One of the people on the board who doesn't know about IT, who doesn't know about security, who doesn't know about anything might go, well, why do I need to bother? Why doesn't everybody just get a login and everybody sees everything? So one of your appendices should say, well, here's the issue about accessing. Here's why you want to limit it. Here's what could go wrong. Here's all of that stuff. So if they have questions, they should be able to go to your appendix and go, oh yeah, I see why you're doing that now. Okay, so it should give explanations for all your recommendations. And of course, because this is an academic subject, you have to give all your sources for that, and it must be properly referenced. I'm assuming I don't need to talk about referencing, that you're all comfortable with referencing and you know how to do it. Nobody's telling me otherwise. You do have any issues, part of the student information link that I've given you does give you information on resources, including the UWS referencing guide and a nice tool that will help you create your references called Mendeley. Part of the reason I put these in here is because I hate referencing. Absolutely despise referencing. I always get it wrong. So the fact that there's a tool that will tell me when I'm supposed to put things in bold and when they're supposed to be underlined and what order the stuff goes in, the fact that I've got that software that tells me that and I don't need to think about it, I just think is wonderful. Okay, so you have to create your report. You have to create your appendices. They must be fully referenced. And part of the reason we're doing this is to prepare you for employment. So even though this is coming to me, I want you to present a proper report. I want it to look like a report that somebody has paid you. So when you hand this in, this is now September, you'll be handing it in November. September, October, November. Question you should be asking yourself is, if I paid somebody for 3 months to produce this report, would I be happy? I want this to be a proper report that you can say, yeah, this is exactly what I would do in real life. In part because one of the things that you can do to differentiate yourself when you're going for a job is to say, look at the report that I made here. Look how good it is. So I want a proper report. I don't want to see a bunch of spelling errors. I don't want to see the typeface changing because you've copied and pasted from different bits and pieces. Proper report, proper professional report. That is reflected in the marking scheme. There's 20% for academic referencing and having it professional. So you can pick up...
To report, how many words is supposed to be, actually?
Good question. No, I'm not telling you. And I'm not telling you for this reason here. While there's no example report for you to follow, there are defined marks available as follows. What I have found is that if I set a word count, or if I set an example report, what I get is a dozen different versions of that report. When you go out and get a job and someone says, I want you to produce a report on subject X, they never, ever follow it up by saying, oh, and by the way, the report must be 10,000 words, excluding diagrams and appendices. That's not how real life works. So the word count for this report is exactly the number of words that you need to explain all of these issues. No more, no less. Okay? Does that make sense? Does that sound reasonable?
It's real sense. I like that.
Yes.
So, no word count, but what you have to do and what you'll get your marks for are shown there. And not surprisingly, they correspond to the subjects. So 10% for governance, 10% for risk management, 10% for a risk register, which is where you'll actually identify risks for that particular company, 10% for compliance, 5% for each for a couple of things called ITIL and COBIT, 10% for controls, 10% for codes of conduct, and 10% for legislation. Okay, so it's all the different things that we're going to talk about, all the different things that you saw in that sidebar, and you'll get marks for each of those. Make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's what you have to do. And there's the case study itself. So it's a fictitious company. It basically reflects, because I haven't always done this. I used to have a real job. And I always say that because it annoys my academic colleagues. I used to work in industry. So I used to do this stuff for real. So this is a pretend company, but the things that I've put in it are things that I've seen in real life, or things that have come up in real life. So your document addresses the stuff in there. Okay. So about 3 pages. And here's the thing. There's stuff in there that is unnecessary. There's stuff in there that is contradictory. And there's certainly not enough stuff in there for you to produce your report. Why? Because that's exactly what you will get from your company. Part of what you have to do is try and understand this company. And part of how you do that is by asking questions. So if there's stuff in there that says, well, you've said this and you've said this, so which is true? You need to ask. If there's stuff missing, you need to ask. Don't send me an email because it will get lost in the pile. Put it on Teams. Okay, post a question on Teams. That means that I'll see it, I'll respond to it, and it means that everybody can see both the question and the answer. And I would encourage you to not just post questions, but also to post answers, to actually talk about this stuff. I don't want you copying each other's reports. I absolutely want you to talk about what it is you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it. That's a core part of working in a team. And even though this is an individual report, you guys, there's only a dozen of you, you should be working as a team to start thinking about how you would approach this in real life. Because some of you will have focused on some bits, some of you will focus on another, and together you'll get something that's really good. So talk about it, discuss it, figure out approaches, share things that you've found, put them up on Teams so that everybody can see them, but don't copy. Okay, as you well know, all the stuff goes through Turnitin. It will show when you have copied things, not just from people in the class, but from all around the web, including other universities and students from our university who have done similar things before. So if you know somebody that's done this in previous years and you think, fantastic, I'll grab the report, no, Turnitin will not be happy. So that's the assessment. That's worth 100% of your mark, and you saw the marking scheme about how that's broken down. Nobody's in work, so nobody's interested in the workplace option. But here's the thing, you really should start now. Okay, we're working our way through some materials. What I don't want you to do is get to a week before this is due in and think, oh, I better start writing a 50-page report that's due in next week, because you will not be able to do it. Part of the reason it's structured the way it is so that you can start to write the report as we go along. So as we talk about governance, you can start to write the sections of the report that talk about governance. As we talk about risk, you can start to write the sections of the report that talk about risk. And you can keep that up all the way through. It means that when you get to the end, all you have to do is bring it all together and make sure it looks okay. To help with that, that's where these assessments come in. I'm going to show you on Moodle for the reason I mentioned earlier, which is that if I show you on Teams, I just get to see a list of you guys and I don't actually get to see the questions. So in every section, there are tutorial questions. And this is how the next few weeks will work. We'll start. I'll have some stuff that we want to talk about with you. Now, it's in order, so you should have read the presentations before we even get to the lecture so that you can think about them and you can ask questions, but I will go over them. And then there will be a quiz. Now, it's not an assessment. I'm not going to mark it. What they're here for is to give you an idea of the sorts of things that you should be thinking about. What is the difference between management and governance, for example? And presumably none of you know it because we haven't got to governance yet. But it's the sort of thing that might, for example, be included in an appendix to your mythical board, because they might not know the difference between managing and governance. So the questions that are here are to give you a kind of clearer idea of what I'm looking for. They allow you to produce some of this report because I'm expecting the answers to these questions will end up in some sort of form in your report. And it will also mean that if you have things that you're not sure about, you can come in the next week and ask questions about them. So it means you've got stuff to work on as we go along. These things, I'm not going to mark them as such. I'm going to check that you've done them. I'm going to check that you've completed it just to make sure that you're keeping up. I'm not going to mark them. You know, there's no mark out of 10 for why there should be different skills required on a board. But if you get to the end of this bit and you're not sure why there's multiple skills required on a board, then that gives you the opportunity to ask during this time that we have together. Okay, so the idea is you will build up all this stuff as we go along, and that will then all knit together and you'll come up with a nice report at the end. Make sense? The submission date isn't up yet. My suggestion, and I am open to discussion on it, my suggestion is that it should be submitted by the end of November, no later. The reason I'm saying that is we can get through the materials that we need. Remember, this is only a 10 credit, not a 20 credit course. So we can get through the materials, and it means that you can have this one finished before you're into doing the other modules, because the other modules presumably will have assessments and exams in December and January. So I'm suggesting no later than the end of November for this module, basically so that you can have it done and dusted, and then you can concentrate on the other things you're doing. I'm not expecting an answer now. If you want to come in now, I'm happy to hear it. But that's what I'll be aiming for. If you have other ideas, please let me know, because I really don't mind. We need to finish before the end of term, of course, but I really don't mind how we structure it. That just seems to make sense in terms of your workload. And it's the same reason I'm trying to get you to build up stuff as we go along. Sorry, Salima, you want to come in there?
Yes, I was gonna say it's better that if we finish earlier.
I think so. I think it would help. Okay, if anyone has any other thoughts on that, put them in Teams, talk on the lecture, whatever, that's fine. As you know, pass marks the usual, 50%. All the thresholds are available in that student information document, so I'll not go over them again. When you're doing it, read the module descriptor so you know what we're heading for, so you know what I'm looking for. That's why the learning outcomes are there, that's why the descriptor's there. If you haven't fulfilled those learning outcomes, you can't pass. So it's explaining the principles, analysing the information and presenting it. That's why they're all there. All the modules are there. All the materials for the module are there. Like I say, they're all on Moodle now. They will be on that other thing as we go along. It's just, it takes a long time because there's so many materials. And there's a tracking bar on Moodle. So basically, as you work through the materials on Moodle, oops, wrong screen. As you work through the materials on Moodle, you will see these things here, tick marks. Some of them are solid, some of them are dotted. The solid ones are ones where you can say, yep, I've done that, so you just click them and tick them off. The dotted ones are ones where you have to do something. So you might, for example, have to click on a link and go somewhere. Once you do that, it will automatically update and it'll tell you, yeah, okay, you've done that. If you go through the module, if you get all your things ticked as you go through, you'll not be going too far wrong. It just helps you keep an idea of where you are, and it also helps me because I can see a report on this. I can see who's been looking at stuff and who hasn't. And if you've not been looking at stuff, we might need to have a chat. But you're all big boys and girls, I'm sure that won't be required. Okay, so that's the tracking bar. The other thing I'd like you to do is be here. I'll tell you now, if you turn up, if you engage, if you do the stuff as we do it all along, you will pass no problem. If you don't turn up, if you don't do the stuff as we go along, you leave it till the end, you won't. It's not rocket science. Do the stuff and you'll be fine, don't and you won't. That's not master's level, that's primary 1 level. So please be here, prepare beforehand, so look at the materials, they're all there so you can read the lectures, you can look at the links, all that kind of stuff. It means that when I'm talking about it, you have an idea of what I'll be talking about and you can ask questions on it. If you're just seeing it there and then, it's sometimes difficult to think of the things that you don't know and ask a question about them. If you don't understand anything, ask. Like I say, there's only a dozen of us here. I'm assuming you guys know each other well because you'll all be taking the same classes. Just talk. If there's something you don't know, just ask. That's what I'm here for. But please ask there and then. So don't come back in a month and say, can you tell me how we're going to be assessed on this? Because we're doing that today. And if you have questions on it, I'm happy to answer them today. I'm happy to answer them next week. I'm happy to answer them in a month. But if you're only asking that question in a month, you're 4 weeks behind. So ask them close to when we do the stuff. And like I say, what I'll be doing is we'll be talking about the materials. I'll be presenting it, giving you a chance to talk about it. And then what we'll do is we'll move into a kind of tutorial mode. In essence, I will still be here, but I won't be talking. It lets you get on with those questions that I've posed for you. And it means that if you have questions, I'm here to answer them. And that's how we'll set up the classes from now on. I'll come up with a schedule that shows which things we'll be doing on what week, leading up to the assessment being due in at the end of November, and I'll post that soon. So, any questions on that?
For me, I don't have any question now. I'm good.
Okay. So I said it was going to be a nice, easy start, and this was a nice, easy start. So you've got an idea of what we're going to be doing. You've got an idea of what the assessment's going to be. All the materials are there, so you can start looking at them. And you have an assignment just now, which is to go and read through all the student information and get a head start on the materials that will be coming up. As I will be every week, I'll be here till 1 o'clock. So I'm here to chat either in a group, or if you want an individual chat, we can go into a breakout room and it's just we can just chat individually. So if it's something you don't want to share with everyone else, that's no problem. We can get a breakout room and we can talk, just the two of us. So as I say, I will be here. I will go dark, which is to say I'll turn off my camera and my microphone. Sorry, was that a question?
Can anyone hear me? My network is too bad.
I can hear somebody saying something, but I can't make out what it is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I can hear that you're saying that, I just can't make out what you're saying.
Network is bad.
Can you hear us?
Yep, can hear you now.
So what I was saying is, if I have questions, I would prefer to ask you personally.
Just put something into the chat
Hear me?
and we'll go into a breakout room where it's just the two of us, so we can have a one-to-one chat.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so I'll go dark, by which I mean I'll turn off my camera and my microphone, but I'll keep my speakers on. So if you want to attract my attention, just say something or put something in the chat, because I'll keep my screen up as well. But if you don't want to stay in this meeting, if you want to head off, that's absolutely fine as well. But I will be here. Anybody get any questions?
Right.
No. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording.
See you later.